Welcome back to tonight's coverage of the World 600 for the Major Series in its European Region Pro Split. Due to technical difficulties out of our control, you're listening to the audio version of this broadcast currently here on GSRC. Justin Prince with you, along with Jake Sperry and Christian Chowder, our producer Zach Johnson, currently working very hard behind the scenes to get things gathered back up. To reset how things are currently going, coming up to the halfway point of the World 600 for the European Pro Split. It's Dallas Pataska in the race lead. Alexander Russell is in second. Sean Campbell in third, with Mark Redford 2.3 seconds back and fourth. Travis Henderson's in fifth. The 777 Ross Banfield in sixth, with Ryan Wachaleski recovering to seventh. He's charged up late in this run. Elvis Bonello in eighth. Trevor Bobrovsky ninth, and Jamie Conway the top 10. Devin Monerwich along in 11th spot. Freitas has dropped to 12. Gian Colon, Dreiling, and Baker, your 16 cars in the lead lap. Thomas Cope, the only driver a lap down currently in the field. 200 laps to go for the World 600. Christian Chowder set up in 1 and 2. Jake Sperry set up in 3 and 4 for the time being. Off to you, Christian, as they go off to 1.
Yeah, Banfield has kind of lost a couple of positions here, and at the moment he's got Wachaleski ahead of him. On the bottom of the track, you got Elvis Bonello. He's making the move right now on Banfield. Banfield's stuck at the top of the track. He's not going to be clear as they come down the backstretch, though.
And that run, I think, is going to be so vital to trying to pick this up. Every time Ross Banfield finds himself in a chance with how he's been battling, he has tried to be aggressive, but Bonello hasn't really shown today that he's had the ability to fully make that move.
Yeah, Wachaleski was able to get it done, and everybody's kind of packing up behind Banfield. Banfield's still running the top here, trying to just get clear ahead of Bonello, gets to the bottom, but now Bonello's got to his outside, the 10 of Trevor Bobrovsky. He's going to clear him down the backstretch. So Bonello's gone from making a pass for 2 spots to, in effect, losing 1 spot.
Losing 1 spot and losing 1 spot pretty quickly, you would say, at that point in time. Keep an eye as well on the leading battle, second and third, because they are nose to tail. Campbell still not off the back of Alexander Russell.
Campbell still keeping that pressure up, but Bonello pushing hard off the turn 1, bringing Jamie Conway with him.
Yeah, Jamie Conway kind of making a bit of a return again. We've seen him move really up and down the field the entire day. He's struggled a little bit to maintain towards the top end of the top 10, but I still got to think that he's maybe just, doing a couple of laps to see what he can do, and then he's just kind of content to just roll after that. All the way down to 16th place. Is still within 9.5 seconds of the lead right now, and obviously only one driver, Thomas Cope, 1 lap down. So everyone's still in contention, really. We haven't seen anyone be a runaway leader. Obviously, we've seen Pataska lead a lot of laps. We've seen Campbell at the point, and we've seen Alexander Russell as well. But nobody's really staking a very kind of, firm claim on the race lead.
Pictures back going, scoring coming up in just a few moments here on GSRC for the World 600. 196 to go. Tom Drowling's had a spin already at the back of the pack. The rest of the field, Jake, keeping it clean? Well, for now, because the battle is on for 6.
Again, it's the rear tyre issue that is out there and is plaguing the drivers towards the rear of the field. Dreiling just losing the rear out there completely and dropping down. Didn't get enough angle to throw a caution out. So we stay green here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, but 205 laps in, and we're starting to see a few shadows, which means that the lights are on here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and this second half of the race is going to be reaching nightfall shortly.
Roski getting the run right now on Wachaleski. Battle for second, you see on screen 2. And around this time was where Campbell started to push a little bit more, but more so around lap 35. Pataska, remember, has been able to stretch out very long ahead of the pack short run. The long run has been the major hurdle for him tonight, as well as timing when to come in.
And that timing, I think, is going to be really important here. When is the right time to come in? Nobody, I would say, in terms of Russell and Campbell, have truly had any representation or understanding of how long are they able to go? How long do they feel comfortable going? And first time, really, we see defense to the inside from Alexander Russell. Didn't get the best run, clipped the apron, actually, going through 2. And ultimately, that meant yeah, you're going to have to try and be patient through 3, and it's going to come right down the circuit all the way to that second groove, covering off. Campbell does not want to let the 26 jump back up into second.
Yeah, pretty aggressive defense, I would say, and I still feel like everyone's racing really, really hard, and not towards the end of the race. In terms of how far would it go, I would still be trying to see if I could get as far as possible into the runs. Just at this point, mainly so I could know myself what I need to do in driving, where I need to save a bit more tire. If I can push more, I mean, there's the possibility that with the track being quite cool and it obviously getting even more favorable the more they run, that you might be in a good spot by now regarding tires. You might be able to get near to a full fuel run, and if you can get 60 laps into the run without really struggling with tires, then I think you're in a great spot. You really have a good car underneath you if you can do that.
Still sending things out is Campbell to find a way around here. Bobrovsky, by the way, has repassed Wasilewski in that fight for 6th. They are not backing down back there either. So a lot of drivers keeping things busy. Here's a look in particular at the battle for 6th. Wasilewski wanting that spot back. Ross Banfield improving, also looking to charge with Bonello.
And sometimes being in a pack is a little bit more helpful than being out there on your own. And that seems really weird to say, but you can just follow the train tracks essentially of what's in front of you instead of having to work out where the imaginary lines are in front. So it can give you that extra bit of understanding, that extra little bit of help that gets you on your way and walks forward. What I do find interesting as well is that the top 3 now have bunched up together, but 4th and 5th as well. Redford and Henderson, they're working really well together, the 2 TFR Grizzly cars. So that's pretty much the bridge between the divide. Top 8, or these groups to the top 11, still within 6 seconds. So there's still opportunities arising here that you can go, you can still get what you want. How deep do you want to go if you're Elvis Bonello into 3 and 4?
Almost treating the cards in front of him like pinballs a little bit, trying to sort things out with the send.
Yeah, they're all just sort of tied together as well. It's quite impressive, really, that you just sort of get these groups that it cycles out the leader. I mean, you didn't really think that the 10 car of Bobrovsky was the strong car in this group. It looked like it was Wasilewski for a while. Obviously, Banfield led it for a while, and now it's flipped around. Bobrovsky looks actually the strongest he's probably done for the entire race so far, I would say.
A lot of bobbling and banging around at the moment still as Bonello getting the run underneath the 777, off to the grass nearly. Having a lift out of it, Bonello wants to go, but no one wants to give room for anyone to go.
Well, everyone likes their position. Everyone in the line wants their place in the line. And whether it's one position here or now, they know that it's giving them a little bit of time if the caution comes out. It is about, especially in a train when you're thinking about green flag pit stops as well, getting to the front of that train or the back of that train is crucial in terms of how you choose the dynamic of where you want to be. Being in the middle is sort of the worst of both worlds, really, because you're having to be alert on the cars in front that dive into the pits, and you're alert of being undercut by cars behind who jump into the pits. So really, you don't want to be the one who is in the middle, having nothing really to do about trying to get through. As we say that, Tom Dreiling has just come in for a green flag pit stop.
32 laps is the furthest the 11 car can go. Already completed the stop in general, but look at the lead. It's bumper to bumper to bumper. Pataska's gap has gone from 1 second up down to just a 10th. Here comes Russell with the run. Russell wants the lead. Back under green flag conditions. He's led 8 so far. Pataska lets him have it.
Yeah, and Campbell didn't actually dive into that gap. He's elected to sit behind Pataska. And Russell running a little bit high coming off of 4 there, but this will be interesting to see if Russell actually pulls away here. Russell has looked like he's kind of been a bit more conservative with how he's been running the race so far. And this is, you know, really only our second properly long green flag run that we've had.
Still settling things out as Campbell now looking for a peek underneath Pataska. Campbell sends it for second. Still looking to fight it hard on the bottom side. still trying to get around as Pataska gives the squeeze.
Not quite guaranteed just yet. They've still got to run through 1 and 2 and make sure that's sorted. But again, on the brakes, though, that inside line is king. And ultimately, for number 26, that is the position. And moves up into second. And crucially, did so in such a way that didn't cost time out there overall. And that is the key to making these overtakes at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Get yourself a position and don't waste time doing it. If it takes 1 lap, 2 laps, just make sure it doesn't take more than 2, otherwise you're really going to start dropping.
Campbell building up the speed in all of this. This is one of the most intriguing battles for the race league all night long. For those just tuning in, Pataska leading 108 of 217 laps before this point. Here comes Campbell with the run. Does he take it? No. Waiting for the better opportunity.
Yeah, and Pataska has led, obviously, a lot of the laps, the majority of the laps tonight, but as I was saying before, I don't really feel like he was a runaway leader at all. Obviously, he never really shot way out there. I think the furthest we saw him out was about 1-point-something seconds. So I never felt like he was dominating, even if the laps led counter would say otherwise. It's been between these three and Washaleski, and to another extent, Mark Redford. They've all kind of been very, very close, and this long run is going to be really interesting to see if anyone has any significant late run advantage. At the moment, it looks like it's gone against Pataska, but I'm not sure as to who is the better one out of Russell and Campbell.
Still bumper to bumper. Miguel Freitas already into the pit lane for his service in the 999. And that lower line down to the bottom has been a big part of building up the runs. Campbell is struggling to get to that. We're reaching that cliffing point we talked about, Jake.
Yeah, when the tyre hits a cliff, it's almost like you've got an elastic band. You're stretching it out, you're stretching it out, you're stretching it out, and then at some point it snaps. And effectively what you have when the car snaps is a tyre that just does not have any grip. There's a look then at Alexander Russell right now. This is all part of the plan here. This is a case of I'm not really too concerned with what's behind. This is pretty much status quo. We had a good long lap run. In fact, in that last caution that went through, he was one of the few drivers who was saying, God, I can't believe that we're struggling to get a green flag run. And they've looked around and gone, well, we're actually doing better at this point in time than you could say that they did in the real world for that, as there is trouble actually there on the backstretch.
Yeah, and Colon's going to basically be out of the race with this. He's got significant front suspension damage. It cut to him as he was kind of just recovering, but he had a huge incident. I'm not sure how it started, but he was doing multiple spins down the backstretch.
Yeah, it was Jean getting into the wall there, Justin, and basically nowhere to go for Cologne.
And Cologne missing the pit lane. This could spell trouble for the race leaders who are side by side right now. Campbell drives on by. Cologne spins in the pit lane towards his stall. Campbell tries to rip it around the outside. Clears on by Russell for the point.
Yeah, and that's a crucial overtake as well, because if there were to be a caution, that was the moment to seize the initiative, go to the front, get the track position for the caution. So Campbell thinking on that RSR by butt kicker number 26 Buick that it was time to jump in and get to that lead. That wasn't just a general motor, that was a generally great decision.
Russell trying to get the run back. This is not over yet. And remember, Pataska's tried to pit around this mark each of the past couple runs, which have gone green. This has also been around the time cautions have waved. Washaleski's already into the pit lane. No move from Russell quite yet. Big bobble from Russell regardless, as Pataska really backing off from this pack. Will the 23 come down to the pit lane? Gion's at least coming down. No, top three stay out.
Yeah, and drivers are starting to struggle. Vavrovsky's coming down as well. He just had a massive moment coming off for 2. Was able to save the car, but has realized that his time is up.
You see just how low one of the sides of that car is right now. But your race leader's still keeping it up. And at this point, it's almost looking like Russell's dead evens, pace-wise, compared to Campbell.
That's not too bad though, because if you're saying that my pace is even with the guy who leads the series overall and the guy who's second overall is the car that's behind me, I'm in with a great chance of this race overall, so long as things stay the way I want to. I'd be loving life if I was Alexander Russell.
And here's the quick map. Remember those 70 lap marks? That could play a huge part of this race the rest of the way. Russell inside of Campbell for the lead. Goes for the send. Campbell tries to hold on to it. Can't.
Yeah, Russell a little bit deep there. I think he washed up much, much more than he was expecting. Campbell kind of saw it, had no choice but to really give it to him. Now, I'm curious as to how long everyone in this group is going to run for. Pataska has dropped to the tail of it, but he hasn't been dropped, so to speak. He is still just about staying in contention as Russell hits the wall.
Russell slams the right side of the car in the wall. No damage somehow. He still holds on to the race lead. As there goes Pataska, he's had enough.
I mean, if ever was there a sign, top two in the wall out of two, absolutely I'm coming down in and making a stop, because that could have gone anywhere, and they're so fortunate they just bounced slightly and continued on their merry way.
Yeah, that was about 43 laps, I believe, for Dallas Pataska, so not really being able to extend these runs out late into the race.
Campbell keeping the pressure up, nearly hits the back end of Russell's car, going for the race lead. They still look to battle it on. Now a little bit of a buffer mark as a result of that major send from the 26. And remember, Cordo Colon, the first DNF of the race currently, or at least those off track after his hard hit earlier. Chance to look at that once things settle on down. Let's take a look at it now, in fact, here on the GSRC replay machine.
Oh,
and the caution
winner off two is
No,
24.
And it's in the same spot in the back straightaway. Travis Henderson, his teammate, from fourth position. And this was on his own, and Henderson lost a tire mid-corner, it looks like.
Absolutely, and it's just a case he was fighting the grip, had to fight it once, twice, and then no matter what he was doing, it was, I would say, that's also right out in front of Pataska there, who was coming out of the pit. So Pataska dodging a huge bullet there on the exit of pit lane.
Pataska first car a lap down 2, meaning Pataska again will have to claw back for the pack. Here's a look at what just happened. Yeah, you can see it right from the entry.
Yeah, it's clearly down. He was going around on him halfway through. The downside for Pataska is he wasn't on the lead lap. So he will have to take a wave round, which is not ideal. He's going to have to do all that work again to get back to the front.
It stops back underway in turn. 9 cars in the lead lap at the time of the yellow flag. Bobrovsky, Cope, Freitas, Gian also having to take wave rounds potentially here. But for Russell, good defense up towards the front, led a majority of that run. Now 20 laps led 12 of them over the course of that portion of the race. From this point forward too, do a quick set of math. It's about a 2-stopper from here, where from here you'd have to make it about 60, 120, and then about a 50 lap run if you cut it down that way. Or if you try and cut it by 50, 50, 50, you have an extra stop mixed in. Russell, good stop off and away.
And I think the 50-50-50 strat, or there or thereabouts, is honestly going to be more viable for most cars. It doesn't look like everyone can actually get to the end of the fuel runs. A lot of cars are still struggling once they get past around lap 40 of a run.
Ross Banfield getting some damage repair done, worth noting, in the 777. Travis Henderson also trying to do the same in the 24 after his spin. Remember, had that major flat. Wachaleski in position for the wave. Dallas Pataska, the lucky dog. And the interesting thing when it comes to Wachaleski here is he had a 13-second pit stop. That is extremely quick. So at this point, you'd have to think Wachaleski is trying to preserve those tire sets here, maybe.
Well, if he's been so aggressive early on, taking a couple of extra stops, the one thing you want to give yourself near the end is a set of tires to come in, pit with, if there's a caution that comes out with 30 to go, with 20 to go. it's sometimes maybe even with 10 to go that says, I can be uber aggressive and drive through the field and get as much as I can out of it. It's that level of, I would say, here and there, where if you've used up a lot of tires early, which I think was done out there overall by Ryan Wasilewski, this is the bit where he's going to have to bite and say, I'm going to have a couple runs of bad tires and hope things fall my way. So I've still got tires at the end where if it does fall my way, I can go and attack for some really nice points.
Anderson back down to the pit lane, by the way. And you're right in terms of the point marks. For a race like this, and how you never know how it could fare out, this is a big points day for some. Mark Redford in particular is still a top 5 race car here. Redford has been a mainstay inside the top 4 for the past 150 laps.
Yeah, and I think he's going to stay there. I mean, I haven't seen anything to suggest that he's going to go backwards. If anything, he's kind of actually benefiting quite often from misfortune for the drivers ahead of him. Obviously, up to 3rd right now. When Pataska cycles back through, I think he'll drop back to 4th. But we haven't seen Wasilewski move forwards since that contact with the outside wall. And that was kind of another position where Redford benefited. But he has been strong. On the long run, he has had good pace. It's not like he's there just out of luck or anything like that. He's genuinely got the pace to run in the top 5 today.
Absolutely does with how things are faring out. Wise words from the series leader in victories in pro split competition. By good about 17 wins over Blake Reynolds. And oh look, Dallas Pataska and Cameron Dance are tied entering the weekend at 11 victories. Getting ready to go back to racing, 167 laps to go. Russell in control of the pack once more, followed by Campbell, Redford, Manerwich, Benello. Green flag is back out. We're racing again from Charlotte. And whoa, Campbell with an issue up through the gears, backs up to 3rd.
Well, exactly what you want if you're Mark Redford. Move up immediately into 2nd position, start that chase, start that run, getting a little bit hairy behind as well, but I'm sure Sean Campbell isn't going to want to be sat behind for too long. Look at them as they dive in. David H. Baker's on the radio saying, oh, I don't really want to be here on that outside. Remember, Pataska's in the middle of all of this. He's going to be on the low line. He's just made the pass through now on Jamie Conway there for position. So positions changing all the time, and David H. Baker's taking that path of least resistance once again on the high side. I want to stay out of the way. Remember, that's the same path, Justin, on that cautionless Indy 500 that got him 2nd overall.
Pataska trying to charge ahead absolutely here. Conway trying to wait for the opportunities to open in front. Pataska opens up the door for himself underneath Banfield, back up to 6th, just like that. Campbell's also made a pass on Redford after Redford got loose last time around in 1 and 2. So now the work is on for the red and yellow number 23 to get back up there. 1.7 seconds the distance. Last time by had gained 0.2 despite being side by side again.
Yeah, and I think he's going to try and work his way through these cars pretty quickly. I think it was important to clear Banfield, because unfortunately he's kind of been the cork in the bottle for most of this mid-pack. He seems to fire off quite well, but after that, his long run pace doesn't really look as good as the other cars around him.
Task able to clear one more driver in this midst. Take a look at Conway meanwhile. When does the go time come for Conway? He has been pushing a little harder, I've noticed here, Christian. But not as hard compared to what we see with Pataska, who's clearing car after car after car.
Yeah, I still don't think it's really necessary to be completely running 100% until you're within those last 50 to 100 laps of the race. You know, we've seen a lot of cars struggling to make the tires last, so there's not a good incentive at this point where you're going to have to stretch out a couple of runs at this point, perhaps. to, you know, really be running the tire hard. If anything, that's only going to make life more difficult for you. I wouldn't all be surprised if we see a couple of cars running 40-lap strategies from here to the end, just because of how difficult it's been for cars to even make it out to about 50 laps. But I think if you run it easily, as we see, into the wall there from Banfield on the top side.
He had just gotten that car fixed too with right side damage. So Banfield continuing to slam that wall bit after bit as he hits the chip again. Battle forming up behind in turn. Henderson passing a teammate.
Yeah, that would be Milnarovic, then the pass done, and every time you're looking to try and keep yourself in play, this is a long race, and it doesn't need understating that they've gone for 2.5 hours at this point, and they've still got 160 odd laps to go. Every time they are in this race, it is so easy just to switch off for one small moment and the entire house of cards can fall down. There's some great battling in the back, but once again, Dallas Pataska is searching for places. This time it's Mark Redford. This is for third place, and this has been a really good opening stint. He's going to just push slightly up the track there, give himself the room, but he's not got it cleared. He'll have to do the work in 1 and 2.
That car looking very stable for Dallas Pataska, to say the very least right now. Redford giving a lot of space in turn. This is right where the big boot has been, off the corner. Redford not making it as easy compared to some of the others, though, this time. Pataska still trying to sort it out. And now just about does, even though Redford's trying to pedal it up top.
Yeah, Redford's going to hang on a little bit longer, I think, here. He's going to get a really nice run on the top of the track. It's a little bit better for Pataska here, being able to, you know, run through the bottom of the quad oval. Doesn't lose out as much as you do on that run out of 2. Looking better in a 1, giving a bit more room. But still, Redford's going to get a really, really nice run off the exit of 2. Just not giving this up to Pataska.
Good pullback from Redford again, still side by side. And they'll win the popcorn seat, half a second back. Down to the white line again. Pataska, this time a little bit harder on the throttle. The give and take starting to be chipped away a little.
It was interesting how much he's moved up and is moving up. He's trying to push off that groove there, Mark Redford. It's almost like trying to effectively get rid of a tick or something. It's a very long and extradited process to try and make that happen. Again, through 3 and 4, Redford has just been so good up on that top line. So good, actually, to the point where they've actually brought Bonello and Conway. Finally, it's cleared. Banfield there as well. They've actually got themselves back into a good range with it. So they've done very well. And on top of that, they haven't really lost too much time to the top 2. The gap just 1.1 seconds over the line to Russell and Campbell. So this race far from over at this point in time. Henderson now in a scrap, and that is with Wasilewski, who has been pretty friendly with just about everyone today.
Now he turns himself across the bumper of the 86. Henderson off the wall. Henderson up the racetrack. No caution yet as he moves to the apron. We stay green.
That is so fortunate, Christian. That all happening on the apron means it stays green.
Yeah, and it looked pretty dicey for a while that Henderson's car was going to come flying back up the racetrack into the path of everyone, and fortunately that didn't happen. I was a little bit surprised to see how that unfolded, because it didn't really look like there was anything going on, and all of a sudden Henderson was sideways down the track.
If we can get a chance to look at it in GSRC replay machine, what I seen there too, Henderson looked fine, was staying up towards the top of the wall, then turned down a bit as Wasilewski was riding on top of the dashed marks.
Yeah, pretty strange coming together. I mean, we do see this sometimes. I mean, I can't put that on Wasilewski. I mean, he was running the line that he ran the entire straightaway. Just Henderson was moving down.
And as a result, Henderson's contention days may be at least significantly hampered, to say the least. Back in 14th. Is still in the lead lap and running, though. Only lost 14 seconds from that. Somehow. 9/10 back is Pataska from this battle.
Somehow, some way, if you stay on the leading lap in this race, you have a chance. You have essentially a chip in a chair, and that's sometimes all you need. And that can be huge in terms of how this race brings itself back together. You give yourself an opportunity, you stay on the leading lap, because it doesn't matter whether you're 1 second behind the lead on the leading lap, you're 25 seconds behind on the leading lap. If you're on the leading lap and a caution comes out, you get to line up right back, neutralized again.
Exactly, and the restarts have been very important for Pataska in particular, who's been lightning fast on the short run we've seen. Campbell struggled a little bit as to the past restart or two. Russell's been really good on the pit stop portion of the caution flag periods to be able to hold up and hold on to some positions. Still putting up a good defense here. This is exactly what Russell did the last run here too. He's now led for his most consecutive laps in a row, 18 straight.
And the pack as a whole is still staying relatively close together. I mean, we've been green just under 20 laps right now, and you know, it's the same cars at the front, but they're not driving away significantly. It's only 2.5 seconds back to 7th spot.
Which is Washuletsky behind Banfield, rather. And Elwell's also staying within this train. And give a quick shout out to Bonello. Remember, Bonello to start the race was in the teens. Not so much now.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. Elvis Bonello has really had that car come alive later on in this race. A little look then from the Buick going towards the inside, thinking about what was the best way to make that overtake. Didn't quite manage that at the moment. Has been reading JDR graphics on the back for a number of laps now, is thinking how close can I get to starting to apply that overtake. Follows up the middle of the road, trying to open up this exit, but again, it's covered off nicely and once more goes through. But back to the point, yeah, Bonello's had a really good race to get back up into the top 5, and I think is only going from strength to strength in the cooler conditions.
And this is something I was looking for, is to see if there was any cars that were noticeably getting stronger towards the end of the race. I've got to be honest to say, I didn't really have Bonello kind of on that list, because he did look like he was struggling towards the beginning, but he has really come alive now, and he's on the verge of well, maybe making a pass on Mark Redford, but it's closing up again with the top 3. Pataska's caught up. Campbell's looking for a move right now on Russell.
Campbell's there. Campbell showing the nose. Does Russell let him have it? No. Able to go a little bit deeper on the corner apex. Clearing on by. Campbell dropping back, and Pataska, knock knock, is right there.
Being right there is okay, but it's now about finding the right time to make the moves. So Alexander Russell's been doing well, but because they're all following the same track, Redford's going to be back on, Bonello's going to be back on, and quietly getting back on as well will be Ross Banfield and Jamie Conway in the next few laps. So that group of 7, they're clear, and then the next group, which has the 1 lap down Thomas Kopin, has Vavrovsky, has Baker, has Washuletsky, has Melnarovic in it, all of that group now. We'll be thinking about how that top 7 will work as a dynamic, as they are 4 seconds adrift of the leading train.
This train has been really setting the tempo for a majority of the race. These 3 have been the ones who have led all the laps combined. 180 for Pataska, 30 for Campbell, 43 for Russell. Who will try and get the lead here soon is the major thing. Pataska getting the run on Campbell, gets the quarter panel, gets the fender, gets the door, gets the spot.
Yeah, and a bit surprised actually that Campbell gave that up so easily. We've seen him really fight for you know, track position as the race has gone, so surprised to see him give that up so easily. Bonello has fallen off a little bit from Redford, but Redford is running the top 3 down.
And that's because, in part, with a lot of the battling, you'd have to think as well. The pace for some of these drivers have dropped off by at least a 10th in this bumper-to-bumper train. How does Pataska play this out now? He's tried to poke loose a couple times and to the low side a couple times to make his moves. Russell not as easy to pass, though.
No, certainly not. And Alexander Russell has been really helped by the fact that he does have crew chief in the ears in the form of Paul Bliss, and that you can just get a little bit of a better perception of where a car is behind you, because you can say, okay, you need to run X line if you want to hold it off and not open up the opportunity. And it does make things a little bit stickier. It is like trying to get out of a thorn bush backwards. It is so difficult to find yourself that way away. And what I will note as well is that all of this happening right now leaves a very interesting dynamic with Wasilewski and Ross Banfield right now, because that gap 1.3 seconds. The moment it's within about a second, you start to feel the benefits of tow, of slipstream in these sorts of machines. And once you get that benefit and you're able to latch on and gain a couple tenths here and there, or a tenth on the straight, does make life a whole lot easier for you to just feel comfortable in what you were doing and how you're going out driving. And I'm sure for Alexander Russell, more cars in the train, Justin, will mean more opportunities for a caution and another 5 laps to tick off the book.
Exactly. And you mentioned the time factor a little bit earlier on in this one. Already approaching 3 hours of racing conditions here at Charlotte. Pataska ready for the launch. To the back bumper of Russell. No poke yet. Now up into the train. Redford now within 2 bumpers. Benello has dropped back a little bit as things have calmed down here. As Russell hits the wall again.
Yeah, we started to see a couple more mistakes from Russell as the race has gone on. It's not hurt him yet, but in the early stages, he just looked extremely calm. Wasn't amazing on restarts, but other than that, you know, there was no mistakes at all in driving, and now he's starting to push a little bit more. Obviously, he's got into the fence a couple of times now. It hasn't hurt him like it did Wasilewski, but he's got to be careful. You don't want to keep doing that.
Especially with the crinkled up right rear already in terms of the fender. You don't want to make it where you want to test how far those crinkles can go. Russell clips the apron. Pataska with the boost. Hits the bumper as Russell goes for the block.
This is getting dangerous. Remember, we're still 140 laps away from the end of this race. To start thinking about blocking now might be a bit premature, but we are in the second half of this race. If you want to hold that race lead, then by all means, go out there, fight for it, hold on to it. They have absolutely allowed the 031. Mark Redford now onto the back, and this becomes a little bit dicey, because every time that they will go and they will defend, it sets a precedent of what you need. The door left open this time for Dallas Pataska, who will now move to the inside and re-inherit race lead.
But now the question is, can it be fully inherited, or will there be a dispute for it? The answer? It's clearly claimed. Pataska holds on, but here comes Campbell looking for second.
Oh, not quite, but now on the exit, how good's the power down? It is going to be there, and surely into 1 and 2 here, Justin. This one is going to be Sean Campbell's. Campbell has worked so hard and really tried to disrupt the rhythm of Alexander Russell to pick that off. But look how good Russell is. He's going to have to go up the track, though, and he'll lose it back a little bit through the middle of the corner.
Russell way up into the wall again, scraping the right rear fender once more. Campbell right there to jump to second, and does. So the RSR by Butt Kicker Machine up to second, gets a tap back from Campbell. An apology over the radio as Redford right there to battle as well.
Yeah, it looked like Russell drove it in too deep into one last time by. Nearly ended up really badly in the fence, but didn't. But then into 3 and 4, just tapped the back of Campbell. Nothing too serious.
Lead up to about half a second between Pataska and Campbell, by the way. Benello staying within the distance of the draft, about 3 to 7 tenths of a second. Redford to the inside now. Can't get to Russell's fender yet.
Redford just needs to be patient still. A long way to go. He has got where he's needed to, not by being aggressive, not by making the moves, but just by waiting for everyone else around to be caught on the wrong side of Lady Luck, and positioning has sort of shuffled the 031 where it is right now. And honestly, right now, I wouldn't be trying to dice and gain places. Like, for example, in the background, Wasilewski's gone to the inside, as we can see it right now on screen. here against Ross Banfield. Wasilewski's gone to the school of, I'm going to be uber aggressive. Redford's gone to the calm and collected school of thought here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And effectively, some work and some don't. And I think both have found different elements of merit over the course of the races today.
They both have indeed. We've seen great battles. We've seen in turn as well a lot of saving where drivers charge for the pack on the long run. That balancing act is always so prevalent when it comes to being able to strategize for a full distance race.
Yeah, absolutely. I still think that Wasilewski cost himself earlier when he, got involved with that battle with Campbell, and he's still kind of paying the price for that. I feel like the play by Redford has been, on balance, the better, as we see Miguel Freitas, I believe, and down on the pit road here.
Yep, and Tom Drummond has already completed a stop. Came out right in front of Pataska, though. So the gap that Pataska started to build up a little bit hampered as he had to check up for the 11 as he rejoined the racetrack.
That's always awkward when you've got lap traffic in front of you. You're going to have to be alert to it. You're going to have to look here, there, and everywhere to make sure that the traffic off of the exit of the pits is going to be predictable, rejoining the racing surface, so that's good. What is also good is Trevor Vorosky now trying to find a move almost into the wall. Goes Ross Banfield, and Banfield will now look in front at Wasilewski, the job that was done there, and realise I am struggling now on my tyres because Vorosky goes through. There's a little thought about going back up the circuit, trying to get that back, but no dice. Vorosky moving up now into 8th place.
He's had to work for every spot, it seems, all throughout the night tonight, especially with some of the shuffling in the midst of the pack. Some of the teammates having a battle with their race cars. Speaking of battles, Conway, we mentioned the patience game being played about 200 laps ago by the 42. Now Conway is doing the Indianapolis 500-mile race strategy in the next pack up, as he's right there with Elvis Bonello for a battle for that spot.
Yeah, they've become disconnected a little bit from the top 4, but Conway definitely looking stronger this run. As is obviously Bonello. Bonello is looking much, much stronger this run. Both cars are much more competitive than they were. We are just about at that point in the run as we see Conway just being let go here by Bonello. But we're about at that point in the run where drivers started to struggle. We're just coming up towards 40 laps. So we'll have to see who runs into tire trouble first.
And who elects to come to the pit lane as well, because you mentioned the potential of the 40-40-40 pit stop window. Have that extra stop mixed in. Have to see if this comes to fruition or if they try and stretch it out, because as we talked about a little bit, if they can stretch it, it's essentially from the timing of their last restart a two-stopper on the gas. But they'd have to go 70 and 70 to do it.
I just think it's going to be so difficult. We haven't seen anyone being able to manage this. Well, either we've seen them forced to pit early or the cautions come out. So I don't think the 40-40-40 strategies are the way to go. I would probably avoid those. But I think I would probably be looking more at like the 50-55-ish kind of area. I just think 70 is just too much of an order to try and get to.
If you divide it up real quickly, 55, 110, and about what would be about 165 in terms of those marks. They went back green at about 167, 168 laps to go. Campbell is losing ground as the run goes on, by the way, as the wear is starting to really come on in for a few of these drivers after plenty of the battling we've seen for the lead.
And the difference is Dallas Pataska did a low 32.8. Sean Campbell did a high 32.8. So there is a difference there. They do have Tom Dreiling in the middle, who is running 32.8s on brand new sets of tyres. So effectively is exactly in the middle, stuck in the middle at that section. Wasilewski, though, just going through then, taking the time away from Elvis Bonello for position. So Bonello really going backwards, and in comes that 54 of Julien Gion, making that stop.
So the tires started to really become the more so factor Into the pit lane goes Gian in that circumstance. Wachaleski, who amongst those who stayed out for an additional period or so. Also trying to sort things together. Traffic management could also come into play here because Tom Dreiling is not making it quite easy for a few of these cars. In fact, if anything, there's been barely any gain from the drivers on the old tires to the number 11. Keep in mind, fresh rubber on Tom's car.
And the driver that I'm keeping an eye on here is Mark Redford. He's starting to look really, really strong. He's up onto the back of Russell now.
How do you get this pass done is the major thing. On the long run we've seen, it's very difficult. How do you do it?
I don't think I do, if I'm honest. I think at this point, you see the 24 here coming down onto pit road of Henderson. I think you're in such a part of the run where it's so dependent on trying to eke out just as many laps as you can without killing the tires that I don't think you want to fight. I think you want to wait until the guy ahead of you is struggling so badly on tires that you don't even need to think about the pass. It just, it just naturally happens. I mean, that's what we've seen with Bonello. Bonello looked strong and it's just dropped like a rock in the last 5 laps.
Campbell's passed by the traffic, by the way, as Tom Dreiling giving a lot of space now to these race leaders for them to sort themselves out and battle themselves out. However, Campbell built a big buffer from the timing when they reached the lap traffic compared to the others. Bonello is into the pit lane. Bonello in the 277, speeding for the Italian.
Yeah, and that's going to hurt even more because you're going to have to sit for a very long time, assess that penalty, which will be about a lap, to go back out and going again. So the one thing that you cannot do out there in an oval race is speed going onto the lane. It is the biggest thing to go wrong. And in the wall, Alexander Russell and Mark Redford coming together then, coming through 3 into 4. They've managed to hold it together, but the first real sign of anything going wrong. Redford understeering up with the tire, I believe, into the 27.
Yeah, that was definitely on Redford there. He just got that all wrong and ended up drifting up into the 27. Unfortunately, 27 got in the wall, but not too badly, at least.
Redford carried a lot of speed in the corner as well. Conway's come into the pit lane. We stay green. 121 laps to go. Russell trying to get back up there in turn after the contact. That lost him about a couple seconds to Sean Campbell.
And a couple more seconds every time it goes away. Dallas Pataska, I think, has just looked magnificent. I think he's figured out his tire issues right now, and in such a way where he hasn't really dropped his speed. So this is a really scary point of the race. Dallas Pataska nearly 2 seconds clear of Sean Campbell. That is an ominous omen in terms of what this race could be like inside the final third. Well, sorry, the final quarter when we get there in around about 20 laps.
From this point forward, you can divide it up as a 60 and 60, keep in mind. In terms of the fuel marks, the longer they go, the shorter that long last run potentially could be, or those stints the rest of the tires could be. This is the longest green flag run of the race. And
yeah,
so far, go ahead.
They're getting close to being able to do this as 60 and 60. I think that's a viable strategy now.
Track temperature only dropped 3 degrees from the last time we checked. Originally, it started up at 90. It's -7 from the final practice, rather. And despite that, with the hotter temperatures under the lights, the drivers have still maintained those temperatures pretty well, as Monerwich has signaled he wants to come in and is having issues in the 69.
Yeah, and that's with the 64 then of Thomas Cope, who was there. They were going through one, and I think there was a little shot to the back from Thomas Cope, who immediately apologizes, says, I didn't really want to do that, and I'll just move on with my race as essentially the lucky dog at this moment in time. So there is that to be dealing with, and what I am interested in now is Trevor Vorosky in 6th position, because his work has actually kept him with Wachaleski, who is now on the back of Russell and Redford. So we've got a real race as in will come Sean Campbell from 2nd position.
And a very conservative entry for Sean Campbell in turn. He took the apron for a majority of 3 and 4 to get to the pit lane. Is that the play here, Christian?
It's a time loss, but it's obviously safe. And I think that matters more at this point of the race than anything else. Clearly, though, Pataska has fixed the problems he was having with the tires. I mean, he was only able to do 40, 45 laps at most. And then he looked like he was really, really struggling. He wasn't pitting because he wanted to. He was pitting because he basically had to, as we see Alexander Russell coming down as well. But now the game has totally changed. These guys at the front are able to run these longer runs that they need to make the, you know, the most time optimal strategy work.
Also coming in, the 33, David Baker. Ross Banfield also in. Green flag pit stops for majority of the pack. Campbell struggling to get up on the racetrack below the blue line. Now gets to it. Struggle to keep up through the gears. And now struggling to get fully forward for a moment. Pataska, meanwhile, is into the pit lane from the race lead.
Hands it over then to Mark Redford, who will take his first lap led then here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Concord, North Carolina. So this is a crucial time for the stops. Make sure you get it absolutely spot and on at this point, because everyone is just trying to extend as much as possible. In a two-stop scenario like this as well, one of the things that you'll be looking at is potentially extending as much as you can, shortening down that final stop as much as possible.
Russell has cycled behind Campbell currently, by the way, by about a second. These are the overall leaders you see. Redford currently in the lead, trying to stretch it as far as possible. Wasilewski and Bobrovsky is there. Bobrovsky zips around for second. Trevor Bobrovsky wants the lead, possibly.
This is another car that we saw struggling with tires as well. Bobrovsky had a couple of runs curtailed just because he ran out of tire, and now he's looking like he's held on to them the best of anyone.
Incredible to say the least. By the way, Pataska cycled 3 seconds up over Campbell and company. Conway cycled in front of Campbell and Russell. Still looking at the battle for the race lead on track. These drivers expected to come in within the next 15 laps. Bobrovsky inside for the lead for the first time tonight.
And number 10 finds himself on top. Wasilewski from third will jump down into it then, as Tom Dryling behind has a little bit of a slide going forward. But Redford and Bobrovsky now, very interesting their lap times. They're doing, at this stage in time, 33 flat. A time to look at. Pataska, for comparison, 1.2 seconds quicker, did a 31.8. That is the difference of old tire to new of 1.2 seconds, but it's not between 7 or 8 laps, it's between those 50, 60 laps that we're seeing. So not as much of a drop-off as we expected, but that drop-off still coming into play, and now Bobrovsky is pulling away from Redford.
Of note, Russell has passed by Campbell's short run pace. Coming in there, Wasilewski has completed the service. No indications yet from the 10, 031. And now the 69 is in, nearly to the wall for Bobrovsky.
Yeah, a bit surprised that the 10 and the 031 are still actually running, because the advantage is now gone away, unless they're just trying to get as long as possible so that they can push hard in these next 2 runs. But, you know, the last 2 cars to pit, so it's going to cycle them way back just because of that fresh tire advantage.
You also never know when the caution comes out, right? Because everybody else is pinned the lap down currently.
Yeah, and that's a big factor for sure, but you're still playing a high-risk game yourself. You know, if the caution doesn't come out, you really don't want to be the last person to pit. You kind of want to be in that middle group of cars to pit, because that way it's kind of...
Oh, Mark Redford spins it up the track, hit by the 11 of Dryling. Dodging it is Pataska. Caution flag is out.
That'll be the end of Dryling's race, and that will be the tyre just letting go for Mark Redford, pushing and pushing and pushing the limit as much as possible. And I believe he was trying to get down into the pits with the way he was trying to go, but ultimately it's just no grip, and it just slammed away. And it's the slowest, most frustrating look, Justin, when you have that as the car gives away its grip, because you are a passenger. There is nothing you can do.
And you're right on the pit entry. You see it coming up right here. Remember, these drivers started to show tire. Wow. Actually, we hadn't even made it to the apron yet before the slide.
Yeah, and then just obviously the worst timing possible as he came back up the track. But that's also part of the risk, you know. We've seen that with drivers with completely worn tires trying to pit. It's difficult, and by extending the run out, was really bit by that, honestly. I don't think he needed to run as long as he did, and obviously that's a very harsh penalty for what was quite a small mistake.
Mark Redford didn't have mandatory repairs until he crashed a second time just at the pit cone. So the 11, significant damage as well there. Under caution, only driver yet to pit before that with a clean car, Trevor Bobrovsky. Everybody else has to take a wave. Pataska getting the lucky dog. Russell, Conway, Campbell, Washaleski, the way they line up outside of that grouping.
That's so important there. With the race just bringing itself in 108 laps, it essentially says, I can go 54-54 to the end. Does Trevor Bobrovsky with a very nice long stop, certainly finding progress. So the likes of Dallas Pataska has looked the quickest over the course of a run with the number 23, but do not count out this race being absolutely fascinating between now and the end. Tom Dreiling's race, we expect he's not got the damage there on the car. He's done very well to get away with it, but he will have a few optionals that he'll have to get through. Tom Dreiling, remember, really struggled early on, continued to struggle, and of course after that last heavy hit that he found himself in, that would probably have been the last thing he'd have wanted on his night.
So as they sort themselves out right now in position for about 9 waiver rounds. Russell, Conway, Campbell, Washaleski, Molinarewicz, Gian, Henderson, Banfield, Freitas, and Baker. Redford gets to keep the second spot on the track, though, albeit right now is behind a bunch of the waiver rounds, but won't be in after things get sorted. Benello's a lap down. Cope is a lap down. Dreiling is 3 down now. So this race has been flipped upside down a bit.
Yeah, and it's going to be difficult for the cars taking the wave around to really compete with a couple of cars that are going to be out there on basically fresh tires. Obviously, Pataska got a lucky dog. Bobrovsky on new. I think we've got to expect those two drivers to just pull away from the field.
Yeah, that's going to be very huge when it comes to the Grizzly TFR cars. Wave arounds, waiting for the signal for them, getting the signal now, in fact. The difference for some of them, upwards of 20 laps. The only 2 drivers with freshies, the 10 and the 031 for the restart.
They do have that, and let's not forget as well, those drivers with the wave around, they absolutely have to rush around, join back up with the back of the pack, and it will be effectively, if they don't reach, a 4-car restart at that point in time. So they have that to work with, because of course Tom Dreiling, 3 laps down, is in the middle of all of this too, and they're all getting the notice. Trevor Bobrovsky immediately on the radio there to say that he could absolutely get himself in. So that is going to be the focus on how you get yourself back into play, how you get yourself sorted with as they go around. There'll be the checkup then for Alexander Russell as they go through 4. He will just about get himself onto the back as the pace car will dive in, and we're going to get ourselves back underway. 105 laps to go at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So everyone having to be single file as they get waved around, and they have to chase back. So they get themselves back up to speed nicely, and the gap as we expected, has formed already. Alexander Russell immediately looking to dispatch then here of Tom Dreiling for position, but it's now Pataska looking to get aggressive against the fresh tyres of Mark Redford. Redford already a little bit tentative through 4, struggling a little bit there, running a bit wide, Christian.
Yeah, and I think this is an opportunity for Pataska to try and really build a gap. Obviously, his main rival, Sean Campbell, is at a huge disadvantage now. You know, this is the best opportunity anybody's going to have to really build a gap to try and win this race. You know, providing there's not another caution, which there obviously is a high likelihood, I would say. We haven't made more than about 60-ish laps without a caution so far, but Vavrovsky looked really strong at the end of that last long run, so I think he can definitely fight Pataska for this if he wants to. He might elect to just try and run away with him instead of battling him for the position.
Yeah, that's the major thing. Big picture versus, do you want to be that driver who's in P1? Half a second the distance between them currently, and closing rapidly. 102 laps to go coming around this time by Pataska, now nearly up to the back bumper.
And just noticing there, going through the issues now for Alexander Russell. So swings and roundabouts at the moment, and if those troubles look to persist and continue, he might also be in a bit of trouble later on, because that will be really messing about with drivers. The good news that he's got for that, though, Justin, is he's effectively back of the train. It's only the lap down Tom Dreiling, or 3 lap down Tom Dreiling, that he has to be worried about behind. Everyone else, that gaps out. It's 2 seconds between Russell and Conway.
See that train still keeping itself fairly together. For the race lead, though, Pataska is just about there. Looking now up at the front, 0.2 the gap. Pataska brings the speed up. He's gaining 0.5 tenth the straightaway.
I suppose the irony in amongst this caution is that Mark Redford has actually been quite a big gain, despite being the car that brought it out, as Pataska's going to make the move now down into turn 1.
Going for the lead. 100 laps to go. Pataska wants his lead back. Vavrovsky not making it quite so easy, nearly up to the wall. Grizzly TFR car to the outside. The Satellite Racing car inside. Pataska quicker on entry. Vavrovsky tries to pedal it, but Pataska's got the preferred mark to take the lead.
Doing a very, very good job of it there as well. So Dallas Pataska to the front, making a statement, going all the way to the outside wall to say, I am not going to let that go. And into the final quarter of this race we find ourselves. And I tell you what, race lead battle's been interesting. What I find really interesting as well is that at the moment that happens, Sean Campbell suddenly looking for a move on Jamie Conway.
Yeah, he's got to know that Pataska's now going to try and drive away. But Campbell's going to have really nothing for him on those old tires. And it sucks to be in that position, but, you know, he's just got to make the best of it. I think his goal really should be getting to as far up as he can versus cars on similar tires, and he's basically already done that.
Absolutely, as in the wall! Big sparks brought up by Wasilewski's car.
That is not what you want, just to be panicking going through that section of track. It is always a case out of 2. You think it's the easy one, and it is always going to be as tough can be. You are trying to find that angle. You're trying to find that way to attack as early as possible off the exit. The moment you put it in the wall, there's a confidence denter.
A major one indeed on that mark. So that 0.31 back to 4th meanwhile in all of this. And the nervousness has to come in. Sparks are flying from Alexander Russell's car all across the track with the tech issue.
Yeah, it's never fun when you've got that happening in front of you.
Yep, just look at this.
Wow.
How do you focus on that?
You can't really. You just have to drive your own line and hope that that there isn't going to be a car just appear in front of you. And I mean, it looks like it's calmed down now a bit, so that's good.
That's very good if you're Alexander Russell, because it means you get to keep racing. We talked about that issue before with Pataska. It's come up now for Russell. They are both from the state of Wisconsin, or origin-wise from the state of Wisconsin. And Redford now is feeling comfortable trying to build a run. Elects to go for a bump draft instead, surprisingly.
And that can be kind of scary, being in that position, not knowing where the car is. So you kind of have to drive like the car isn't there, which seems really counterproductive for a car that is up and down and all around and could be anywhere. But that's legitimately just how you have to drive it. Car's not there, just drive it as you would normally, and you know, where it turns up, it turns up. So that's the worry. Keep an eye as well on the battle for 8th position back. Travis Henderson on back. That's a great train, because you've got Julian Gion, who's in there, Banfield, Miguel Freitas is in there, Mel Narovich, David H. Baker. All of that is the final battlers out there on circuit, and it's got lap traffic battles in and around, dispersed in the middle of it too. So it's got every little thing going on. It's kind of like a who's here in terms of who's trying to battle for these places.
Gion trying to build up the runs indeed. Travis Henderson, remember, was that car that pinballed off the inside wall, slid up the track, did not bring out a caution, and is still running at full power just about.
Yeah, and it's honestly surprising how many cars we still have on the lead lap, with how many laps and realistically how many incidents that we've had. We've got quite a few cars out there that have had, you know, fairly major incidents, like Henderson, as we see Tom Dreiling coming back down onto pit road. And yet we've still got 13 on the lead lap, and it's still pretty close. You know, top 13 is still within 10 seconds.
Coming up to 91 laps to go here on GSRC for coverage of the Major Series in its European region Pro Split. The World 600 continues right after this. Dallas Pataska, Trevor Brodsky, Mark Redford, Alexander Russell, Sean Campbell, the top 5.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Eight laps to go here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and Dallas Pataska out and away by a second at this point in time. The focus, though, that we've been keeping an eye out on whilst we were in break was the battle between Sean Campbell and Ryan Wasilewski to fight for 5th position overall. They find themselves about 2 and a bit seconds behind Alexander Russell. They're trying to give chase right now and do as much as they possibly can in this race. Jake Sperry, Christian Schallner here, Justin Prince stepping away from us then for the remainder of this broadcast. But what we can say without a shadow of a doubt is that this has been about keeping calm and maintaining conditions. The conditions have been a lot more helpful late on to the tyres than they have right now, as Wasilewski to the inside looks to take this away on 3:15.
Yeah, and Wasilewski actually going surprisingly unchallenged there. We saw a pretty fierce battle between these two drivers earlier on in the race, and I gotta think that maybe they're not the friendliest with each other right now, but a clean pass all the same. Now to see if Wasilewski can close that gap to Russell.
Absolutely, and they've got the quiet Jamie Conway on the back as well. In 7th, has been up, has been down, has been all around, but has crucially found himself in a really nice position with this race running and could do a wonder in the remaining stages of this race to get himself back up and score some vital points to keep his championship alive the same way, of course, with certain Mr. Sean Campbell.
Yeah, and I think, well, points-wise, obviously Sean Campbell's in the best position going into this race, and he looks like he's on for probably a top 5 here. Pataska needs a better result. He definitely needs this win to close that gap to Campbell. But for Conway, we saw he was very, very strong at the beginning of the season, and then it's kind of fizzled out a bit, but he's looking like he could maybe gain a couple of points back today. If not, it's still been a good run for him. He's kind of taken it pretty easy for the majority of the race and has now started to press on as we've got towards the end.
Just noting that Tom Dreiling has been in the pits for a good 6 or 7 laps now, so his day is practically done at this point, pulling the car over and retiring. Just the 2 retirees then from this race, and 1 non-starter. The non-starter being Cristiano Rocca, with Cordell Cologne out of the race 95 laps ago, and Tom Dreiling now pulling it off and calling it a day. We saw him come down into the pit. So that battle still very much ongoing then, as these 3 fighting in 5th, in 6th and in 7th hold their station at the moment. The key that we were looking just before we went to commercial was how are they dealing with the 031 and the 27, who have dropped 1.5 seconds to Treva Vavrovsky in front of them. But the issue's been Alexander Russell has been blinking about a little bit, so he's had those issues to work with. But look at how close that those 2 Buicks look to chase then against Ryan Wasilewski and the run that he has been getting in his Chevrolet. It has been a case that the Buicks look very, very nice in terms of how they can follow.
Yeah, and Conway is actually looking stronger and stronger as this run goes on. He's now threatening the back of Campbell. And we still Wasilewski get past Campbell, but Campbell's not giving it up just yet.
No, it certainly hasn't been given up, not at this moment in time, and there is some great work. And just behind that, actually, keep an eye on the battle, 8th and 9th, Julien Gion, who has been very silent under the radar with the way that he's been driving. He's got Travis Henson for company, but here comes Conway trying to duck underneath. He's not going to have the power on the exit, though, to get this run sorted, as they will cross the line to start lap 3:21, 80 laps to go here at Concord, North Carolina. And Jamie Conway is starting to just feel out the process of how do I make a move.
Yeah, and I like this. I've obviously saw Campbell was kind of doing this earlier in the race, and Conway was sort of just kind of rolling around and being there on track. But now Conway's actually starting to look the raciest he has all day, and you know, it's good to see, because I was a little bit concerned that he wasn't going to play much of a factor. You see, Wasilewski has kind of just given this up here.
Yeah, he just ran a little deep into the corner, I thought, there, and that pretty much opened the door for Campbell, who really just was a little bit later to turn in and just quietly got there. Now here comes the move from Jamie Conway, trying to find this, and where do you go? Who do you want to give that place to? Ultimately, it comes down to sharing the line slightly. Wasilewski again stuck up on the high side, and this is where he might be paying the price of being very aggressive as a driver on his set of 12 tyres that he'll have today.
Yeah, and obviously we saw early in the race he would really, really run the tyres hard at the start of the run, and then just he never really got a penalty for it because we would always have the cautions. But now you see the car looks like it's suddenly gotten very, very loose for him, and it's right about around that 40 lap point of the run again.
It is, and that's going to be concerning. What will also be concerning is right now Ross Banfield in the 777 back there in 10th position, because he's now trying to get past lap traffic at this point in time in the form of Thomas Cope. But behind him, Melnarovic, Miguel Freitas, David H. Baker, they are all there. They all want to get by.
Yeah, and Banfield has kind of been kind of having his cars stacked up behind him pretty much all day long, and he has looked difficult to pass, but he himself is the one having the trouble putting another lap here on Thomas Cope.
Yeah, and Thomas Cope, of course, if things end up as they are, will be the lucky dog here. If there is a caution, it is worth saying as well here right now, Christian, that there are no green-white checkers in 1987, so any caution between 5 and 2 laps to go ends the race outright.
Yeah, no race extension here, so it does make it a little bit easier for planning. You know, you don't have to worry about green-white checkers fuel-wise. You can really run up to the limit if you wanted to. You know, you could pit with 70 to go and you wouldn't have to worry about having enough fuel to do those extra laps. But in terms of this lucky dog position, Thomas Cope has to be worried because Elvis Bonello is just towards the tail end of this line, recovering from that penalty on pit road.
Yeah, and that penalty, of course, cost that lap, and that's what's put him back. As that happened, there has been a change for 3rd position. Alexander Russell has jumped back through on Mark Redford, so that an important change, about 1.8 seconds away from Trevor Favrovsky. He himself now 1.8, 1.7 back of Dallas Pataska, so the swings and roundabouts all there at this point in time. And a case of Noah's Ark Sim Racing, packs of 2 starting to form up until you get to the back of the likes of the Bonello train. So you got that to work with here at this moment in time. And there is Jamie Conway again on the back of the championship leader, Sean Campbell, in 5th position. I would say at this point, 5th position is not a guarantee at this moment.
Yeah, certainly not. Obviously, at least one more stop to go in the race. And that's going to be a bit of a reset to put everybody back on a similar set of tires. But this is certainly looking like the race has gone away a bit from Sean Campbell. No real fault of his own either. Obviously, just got caught out the wrong side of that caution. But he's having to play defense here and certainly doesn't look like he's going to have a shot at the win if it stays green.
If it stays green, though, is the crucial part of that sentence, because there are no guarantees. We have had a number of cautions. I do believe we are still just in single digits for that as things stand at the moment. So that's a very important little look as we focus on the battle going on for 3rd and 4th positions right now. Alexander Russell, Mark Redford, both there, both trying to keep themselves in this race. And once more, the issues just slightly returning there for Alexander Russell, and it will be concerning to have those sorts of dramas in the back of the mind. You will be aware, and there is sliding onto the lane, trying to get a bit of understanding. Miguel Freitas in the 999 having himself a slide as he struggled to get that stop for the line.
Yeah, hopefully he did. A pretty spectacular pit entry there, and this will be tough. Oh, was that a penalty for him?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, that's so unfortunate because it was a pretty good job to stop it going around, but it was going to be difficult for him from that point anyway. You know, 70+ laps. We haven't seen anyone do that on tires. The most we really saw was 60 to 65, and that was Mark Redford, and that really bit him when he came down to pit after that.
It really did, and it really does show. We've got a battle between teammates as well. Melnarovic and David Baker have just swapped places, so Baker now up into 11th place with the overtake there. But still, the fight for 3rd is going to be a vital one, an interesting one, because they are trying to keep that gap similar to Favrovsky. Now, remember, Favrovsky was really good at saving the tyres early on in the stint, really came back late in comparison to everyone he was fighting against.
Yeah, and that's what I'm keeping an eye on, because Pataska obviously looked much better on his tires last stint, but Favrovsky was really the guy who had the spectacular long run pace, and I think if that's going to be the same again here, we're going to see that within the next 15 to 20 laps as the 54 Julian John comes down onto pit road. This will be his last stop hopefully, but again, very long run to the end here, 69 laps.
Well, he's certainly hoping that his run now is going to be there, but 69 laps to go. That is a lot, finally, coming out then of the pits will be Miguel Freitas. After the penalty, we'll put him 2 laps down at least on the field. Comes out just behind Jamie Conway, and we'll have a lot to work with. Travis Henderson, by the way, just behind, has found the back of Wasilewski at this moment in time. Is going to now start to try and search to make this move. And Wasilewski, at this point, this is the moment where you look around, everyone's going to go by you. It's effectively death by paper cut.
Yeah, Wasilewski's basically in free fall at this point, but he's got to try and extend the run out as long as possible. He's obviously struggling to make tires last anyway. You don't want to double down on that and commit to having to do 68 laps towards the end. If he can survive another 8 to 10 laps, it'll make that last run so much easier for him. Yeah, he's going to lose a lot of outright time and track position, but I think it makes sense to try and mitigate.
It really does, and if you can just find yourself with enough time to get to a number, it does make that life easier. And for Wasilewski, he knows better than anybody else that he's going to have to hurt for these next 12 laps if he wants this one to work the way that is intended to at this moment. Alexander Russell there in 3rd position, Mark Redford in 4th, but the gap is coming down. Just looking at the last lap comparisons then, 32.9 for Mark Redford. It was a 33 flat for Sean Campbell. So they gained a 10th, but the gap 1.7 between them. It is very much in the wheelhouse right now of give and take. Might be a 4-car fight for 3rd going soon, and that's going to be very interesting to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely, and I got a feel for Russell because...
All leader in.
Oh, a huge moment coming down onto pit road there by Dallas Pataska.
Yeah, he's just trying to get himself in, and it looked like he lost it. I wonder if we can get a replay of this from Dallas Pataska coming in, because he had to take not just 1 bite, 2 bites. I think the right rear may have just let go on him just as he was coming down in.
Yeah, it definitely looked a bit more out of control than you're used to seeing. See, the whole looks okay on the... Oh, no, it's getting away from him there. Runs up the racetrack. I almost wonder if this was kind of an audible decision, just like, I'm going to pit now, because clearly it was not going to do more laps. But he's back to being into the problem that he had near the beginning of the race. He's got a long way to go now on this set of tires, and it seems like all the work that he'd done to, you know, figure out how to run long doesn't seem to have kind of persisted. He's gone back to being able to only do about 55-ish laps.
64 laps from here, might need a caution to help. Wasilewski, we just saw as well, into the pits. Vavrovsky takes control of the lead. Now the battle for 2nd. Russell and Redford looking at it at the moment, and this really has been a case of pick the car you choose that you like. It is Chevrolet versus Ford at the moment. Haven't seen too many Fords. The only couple of Fords we've really seen so far in the racing today, Christian, have been from the TFR cars, especially Mark Redford.
Yeah, Mark Redford's really been the standout Ford, and the only real mistake is... Oh, yes, of course, Vavrovsky, he is leading the race. But for some reason, Vavrovsky, to me, has gone a little bit under the radar. Redford was the one that I was kind of really keeping focus on. But maybe I've just kind of neglected Vavrovsky. But again, another driver who struggled on tires early in the race. We saw numerous times where the 10 was having to pit early because he literally had no right rear tire left. And then you think back to that long run where he was the best on tires. As we see Elvis Bonello coming down to pit road again. Hasn't got his lap back, but hopefully hasn't sped onto pit road this time.
And just coming off of the pits now is Jamie Conway, which is big for Sean Campbell and his race. In comes Sean Campbell. Absolutely has to cover it off. The move done by Conway. So 26 forced to dive in with 61 laps to go.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, I think, for all these cars that are having to pit around about now. It is a little bit earlier than I think you would want to pit. Vavrovsky is really looking good right now. If he can extend out to maybe about 55 to go, I think he's arguably in a better position than Pataska is.
Russell will dive in then from 2nd position, just in front of Pataska at that point in time. So more drivers looking to make that call, and they're getting closer and closer to a manageable number at this point in time. Half and half. It's always going to feel like it's the best option available out there for these drivers, but at this point, It is a case of they are in the middle of the cycle, and you kind of want to be in that position. We saw how it caught out a lot of drivers last time, where you want to pit first more rather than pit last.
Yeah, Vavrovsky coming in, and I thought he might, just because of how the gap had come down between himself and Redford. Redford gained a lot on that last lap, and Vavrovsky just didn't look comfortable off it too. So 59 laps to go for him. That's not too bad, but if you can get to that half-half, that's much better.
It does give Redford the lead of the race. Second position right now is Travis Henderson. David H. Baker in third. There's one key thread that connects all of them together. The TFR cars are all going long.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly a good call. I think trying to stretch it out is the way to go. I mean, we've seen before, as well as we see Alexander Russell having a duck underneath there, but we've seen where if you can stretch it out, usually it goes in your favor because there is typically a caution around the pit cycle.
There typically is, and Treva Vavrovsky then just comes off of the lane and will go for it once again. Will be a long way behind Dallas Pataska out there, and crucially will stay ahead of Alexander Russell. So that has certainly worked out in favor in terms of the stops, but we keep ticking down those laps, and another car is going to jump down in. It's Travis Henderson from second position now who will jump into the pits.
Yeah, Henderson was about 4.2. It was 5.0 when he came down onto pit road. So now Mark Redford is really the key car as to when he's going to pit.
And he'll be worried behind because that is Miguel Freitas trying to get the lap back to go to 2 laps down. And Freitas here, this is the position with Elvis Bonello behind. This is an awkward place to be if you're 031.
Yeah, we've seen these two cars have kind of been fighting for this lucky dog position a little bit, but well, it's the lucky dog position once everyone's pit. At the moment, the lucky dog would actually go to Vavrovsky.
That it would, and of course, with everyone trying to work out where they need to be, it's worth keeping that in mind. What is as well is there is a battle second, third, and fourth. David H. Baker, Ross Banfield, David Melnarovich. This is 4 position on the road, second, third, and fourth. So they're going to be trying to think about where's the right place to be. They cross the line this time by. There'll be 55 laps to go, and they'll be in the prime position to say, everybody jump in the pits. You've made halfway of the stop you absolutely needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And crucially, Pataska is now back on the lead lap, so he's safe, so to speak, for a caution.
And Redford saying, I'm pitting this lap. So keep that in mind. Race leader due in this time by has done exactly what was needed off of the stop to go halfway. Almost didn't get it understood. Elvis Bonello almost running straight into the back of Mark Redford.
Yeah, very, very close there. Obviously, Redford very lucky that Bonello was able to pull away from it in time. But a nice run onto pit road by himself there. No lockups. If he can get it stopped in the box, yes, he's going to lose out some time initially because of those extra laps he's ran. But I think strategy-wise, he's in the best position of anyone.
I think he is as well, and I think it tells Baker, Banfield, Melnarovich all staying out. They are right in front of a great battle here between Sean Campbell and Ryan Wasilewski. Wasilewski unable to really make too much inroads into Sean Campbell at this point. So this is a crucial phase of the race, and it is telling right now that those drivers are all staying out longer because they're trying to give themselves every measure of metric. If they stay out as long as possible, a caution comes out. That's it, free pit stop.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really the play here for these 3 drivers. But we're getting to the point where it's going to swing massively against them if they don't get a caution, because if they're forced to pit under green, it's going to be a huge loss. I mean, Pataska is 2/3 of a lap behind, and he's taken a huge amount of time out of them every lap that we have. It's about 1.5-ish seconds.
And just to get a comparison of the gap is about 4.3 seconds between Pataska and Vavrovsky. The gap down to the leaders to under 23 seconds, and it's closing down to 20.6. Think about this as a mile and a half in terms of a track, Christian. If you're a second plus a lap quicker, around a mile and a half, that is mega. As a little look to the inside, the 69 of Melnarovich on the 777 into the pits, having to bite the bullet now, David H. Baker.
Yeah, so just the couple of cars here with Banfield and Melnarovich, and I am surprised that they're still trying to hang on to this. I feel like the play is essentially over, and they're not just trying to hold on to this, they're actually having a battle at the same time.
This is for the race lead. Ryan Wasilewski has the best seat in the house to it as they run towards 3 and 4. Moving a little bit up the circuit now. Will have to go Banfield, but they run absolutely fantastically. Neither of them wanting to give this one up at this point in time. And this is completely stymied Wasilewski in terms of dealing with it. Oh, how close do you want to get? A little pinch in towards one.
Yeah, this is pretty much disaster here for Wasilewski. He's behind 2 cars on much older tires. It is going to come down to 1 car, but he's now lost a lot of time there to Sean Campbell.
Time of the essence then at this point, and Sean Campbell has pretty much checked out in terms of that. Some brilliant work between these drivers to make sure that they keep their race nicely sorted. Now, Redford, I think, has been really interesting on where he's come out. He's come out just behind Travis Henderson out there on circuit, his teammate. And if they feel like Henderson there is going to be in trouble later on in terms of the stint, they might want to put Redford through. But there's a call on the radio saying Melnarovic is coming in this lap.
Yeah, that'll just be Banfield out there. I've got to expect that he's going to pit either with him. It looks like he is. Yep, he's coming down with Melnaritz.
Oh, he rides back up the apron, though, and does duck down. So Banfield in. That will leave the entirety of the field done. It will put Dallas Pataska back in control of this field. But there are questions around car 23 on whether he can make it to the end on this final stop, or whether he will need a quick bit of tyre life to bring himself back in. It's a case of inches and yards and how well can you manage the tyres on the final stint of this race.
Yeah, the big thing is that Redford's actually pretty far behind. He's further back than I thought he would be. Those extra laps have really hurt, but it's to the end of the run where if you run out of tyre that you go off the edge of the cliff so quickly that it might be completely immaterial.
Well, it's 14 seconds between Pataska and Redford right now, so keep that in mind. There is Dallas Pataska, who absolutely has driven his socks off in this race, Christian. He has proven inside the final 50 laps to go here around Charlotte Motor Speedway that for all 400, he might just be the best driver who is here. Fastest in qualifying, has led the most laps here in this race. He could have led all 400 if he had his way, and this was entirely green.
Yeah, it's very possible, and I think with the exception of that last run where, yes, he did build a gap, which was what he needed to do, but it just wasn't quite as good on tyre life as I think he could have been, and that might be the thing that goes against him. But otherwise, yeah, he's now cemented himself as the driver to beat, I would say, to the end of the race. But Bavrovsky is going to be close. He's looking really strong right now.
And there is Mark Redford, and this is on Ryan Wasilewski, so he is absolutely flying about this track right now with confidence on this final stint. Wasilewski, nothing he can do about that. Thank you very much and goodbye. 4/10 quicker on that last lap. Redford running 32.4s at this moment. Pataska running 32.9s trying to save the tyre, so half a second a lap quicker at this point.
Yeah, it's just whether he can maintain that to the end of the run. He does have the inherent tyre advantage, but obviously if Pataska's kind to his tires, he's Redford using all of the track, getting the right rear pretty much in the fence on the entry to turn 1 there. But he is closing the gap down, but you do have to be measured with it. If you take the life out of the tires early, even if you have that inherent advantage, it will just cost you. You won't get what you need. It's better to close the gap slowly than it is to try and run it down immediately at the beginning of the stint.
I wholeheartedly agree on that point, and it does really tell. So let's take a little bit of understanding of where everyone is. Dallas Pataska is your leader. Trevor Pavrovsky in second. We'll be looking behind right now, so the battle for second on, because he is dragging Alexander Russell with him at this point. The gap as they cross will be about half a second, as now navigating the final bit of traffic in the middle, the Chevrolet, that 999 of Miguel Freitas. And Alexander Russell now knows if he wants second position on track, he's going to have to get it with a pass.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately for Russell, that's basically going to be the limit for him here. There was a point in the race where you could arguably have said that he looked like the strongest driver out there, and he could have contended for the win, but it just went against him on that last caution. It set him offset to Pataska, and he hasn't been able to really make any inroads on that.
Hasn't really, but crucially was 2/10 quicker that last time by, 32.9, and that then is a 32.9 as well from Pataska. So you're absolutely right there, Christian. They are net even. Wasilewski will lose out another place to Henderson, and also now through 1 and 2, keep a focus as well on Sean Campbell, because the Buick LeSabre has lost the place there to number 26 to 031, Mark Redford, and at this point in time, Ford Thunderbird is go.
Yeah, and Redford has been released now. His next car is Russell, over 5 seconds ahead, so he's got clean track for a while now. We'll have to see how quickly he closes this gap down, but I think if you're Pataska and you see that gap's under 10 seconds with 41 to go, you're worried. I'd certainly be worried.
That time by only lost 2/10. It's got to be 4/10 a lap from here to bring that back. Pavlovsky side by side with Alexander Russell for second position, fighting on the high side, trying to get this back. The 27 though, nice on that inside, takes the path of least resistance, but over the line, had the advantage by 17 thousandths. A little blink's not going to be helpful for Pavlovsky on that high line, but I think he's going to have to give this one up here and say Alexander Russell move up into P2.
Yeah, and a nice pass there by Russell. I don't think Pavlovsky is going to fight it just yet, but we have seen that Pavlovsky is very, very kind to his tires, so I don't think this is over. It might be over for now, but I think there's maybe a rematch coming within the last 20 laps of the race.
Absolutely. The battle essentially lost then for Trevor Pavlovsky, but the war certainly still on in terms of these two's battles. But at least for now, it is about stay calm and try and get yourself to the end of this race. And everyone pitting a little bit earlier than expected as well, Christian, would have been a little bit of a shock to the system. 55 laps they were trying to get to. Now, a lot of these drivers are on their own or in a little bit of a two-car scrap. So essentially, there's not really too much that can go wrong except a rear right letting go.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge amount of management going on throughout the field here. As you say, a lot of drivers pitting earlier than they would have liked. It's going to make this last stint difficult. Obviously, one of those, Wasilewski, one of the first drivers to pit, he already looks like he's struggling. He's back down in 7th. He's not going to be going forwards anymore. He's definitely going to be looking entirely rearward.
I tell you who did lose out in the stops. It was the 42 of Jamie Conway. He's all the way back now in 9th position overall out there on track. And that really surprised me how much he lost on that stop with the Apex Tech car. Of course, they are rebranding. They're getting themselves an academy team, a community team as well to go on. But for the number 42, yeah, it's been a day of up and down and pretty much everywhere. But I'm surprised that much was lost in the final stop.
Yeah, so am I, because he was looking like a top 5 contender, and now he's largely anonymous. You know, he's 9 seconds back on Sean Campbell in 5th. He's not looking like he's got the pace to close that either. So I'm not really sure what happened in that pit stop cycle for him, because nothing looked untoward on the you know, the strategy. It wasn't like he was out there losing a ton of time. But even the drivers who did extend the stints out didn't suffer as much as Conway has.
Good battle going on for 10th position right now. Julian Gion is really trying to defend against David Melnarovic. They were all over it through turn 4, trying to cover off each other's lines. And Melnarovic here, of course, has some of the freshest tyres in the field. He's going to give a shot to the back bumper going through the exit then of turn 2, and doesn't quite get the run that's needed. Has to drop back into the line right now. Chevy versus Chevy as they run through to 3 and 4.
Yeah, and this is a good example of the tyres. We saw Jean was one of the earlier cars to pit, whilst Melnaritz was one of the later cars. And not an easy pass by any margin, but looked a little less contested outright compared to an equal tyre overtake.
Certainly agree, and it has dropped Melnarovic into the range of Ross Banfield, remember, and they were fighting together just before that stop, so definitely not the end of the world. I am interested to note, though, that Mark Redford here has been brought back right now by Sean Campbell, who has refused to let go. That gap down to the leaders to 9.5 seconds now overall, and to third position, they've still got about 5 seconds to chase down. So it's a case of, I think everyone has just hit that limit. 32.9s, they are the fastest drivers around in this circuit right now. Pataska in the 33.1s.
Yeah, Pataska's slowly being pulled in by Russell. That gap was just over 4 seconds. It's now about 3.5 seconds. A 10th difference almost exactly on the last lap. And in terms of tires, they're five laps offset. Russell has 5 lap fresher tires than Pataska.
5 laps fresher, and those 5 laps could be all of the difference here around this place today. How late do you have to make that stop? How much time could you afford to lose in that stage? Sean Campbell, remember, the championship leader, knows that he wants to get every place possible. That means passing the 031, moving down to the low side of the circuit, which has been the prime place to get it done. Redford leaves it as high and as wide as he possibly could. You could have fit the entire, you could say, county there that they are racing in go through, and that comfortably then for Sean Campbell is back up into 4th position.
Yeah, and that's a shock for me because I really thought that Redford was just going to cruise up to the back of Russell and Vavrovsky in 2nd and 3rd, but instead he's been repassed by Campbell, who is on arguably worse tires.
And that just shows you how much he was pushing early on then, if the tyre life has already scrubbed itself off. So a case then to be made for one Mr. Mark Redford. Yes, you've done really well to get yourself up there, and it's driven really well, but you needed a little bit more calm. You'd have felt at this stage, 31 laps to go, it'll be 30 to go at the line, still need a little bit more calm to get yourself into position to know that there is still a long game to be played, even though we are in the final 8th of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And to give some context, Redford has 7 lap better tires than Campbell, so there really should be no reason why Campbell was able to repass him like that. But Campbell himself is running pretty quickly. I mean, considering that he doesn't have the freshest tires out there, he does have fresher tires than the leader by a not insignificant 4 to 5 laps. But at the same time, he's not got fresher tires than the car that he's immediately next to. He's just extracting the pace somehow, but will it come back to bite him? It has. Every single person we've seen who's tried to do this and tried to run the car hard, it just immediately drops off the cliff towards the end of the run. And it's already risky in trying to get to the end of the race without stopping again. And I can understand pushing, but I feel like this is high risk for Campbell.
It certainly is. Just an update further down the field. Ross Banfield's got through on Julien Gion, so that a change for 11th position overall. But we take an on-board look then from Mark Redford's position, the 031, and very much a case here, running about 178 miles an hour, moving in towards turn number 1. And it just shows how much you have to drop off. You have to drop off about 40 miles an hour through the corner. Doesn't sound like much at all, 40 miles an hour. You can pretty much do that quite comfortably on most of the highways in the United States, most of the roads in Europe. But that, in terms of just dropping it into the corner, relying on the banking to bring you back around, is absolutely massive. Now into the pits, this is big. Miguel Freitas, the 999, couldn't make it to the end with the tyres. Now we've got an interesting race on who can make it home with the tyres.
Yeah, we saw a lot of drivers who were pitting with anywhere from, say, 60 to 70 laps remaining, and I thought it would be tough. Freitas was one of those cars that was actually outside the fuel window. He was even earlier than that, so not surprising to see him come down early, but it is surprising to see him come down this early.
It is, and I'm just taking a look at those times that are continuing to chunk on down. The gap down at this point to just 3.3 seconds then for the race lead. You can see right now it is really Alexander Russell trying to give as much chase. Still has the bit of blinking. That's not going to help. Trevor Vavrovsky, remember, is so good at saving the tyres for late. He might, in the 10, have something to answer with late on in this race. This is far from over, and remember how quickly Dallas Pataska's tyres decided to say, absolutely not, we do not like what's going on. We might be in for a similar situation here at the finish, as we are 25 laps to go at Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, no, I definitely think we're going to see some drivers start to struggle, because it does happen that quickly. You can go from the car feeling really, really incredibly good to within 5 laps basically undrivably loose and you having to pit. So it's one of those things where you have to manage it all the way from the beginning of the run. You can never kind of just forget about it and drive the car. You have to be consciously trying to save the tires, because if you don't, you will run out of them almost unexpectedly.
And patience being shown as well, 6th and 7th. Henderson and Wasilewski are only 2 seconds back of Redford and Campbell, so they are very much in the mix. Elvis Bonello has made a stop, an extra stop, but it's going to be a case really of how long can you go before someone's tyre effectively runs down and cuts.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think is going to happen. Just depends on how many drivers that happens to. I'm really shocked with Mark Redford. I really am, because I thought that he was in the best position to win this race. So either he's seen something on his own tires on that last set that made him think that he needed to be even easier on them this run, or he's just burnt them up, but it just doesn't have the pace I was expecting from him. He closed the gap pretty quickly, but then hung out around about 8 seconds and hasn't made any further progress in the last 10 laps.
Jamie Conway can't go any further. He dives in on 378 then to make a stop. So he now drops himself way back in terms of this field. This becomes a very, very important game of cat and mouse on who wants it. Wasilewski trying to look around the outside of Travis Henderson now for position for 6th place. Can't find it at 1 and 2.
Yeah, and Wasilewski, one of the drivers with the oldest tires in the field. He's now 42 laps in. So by the time he reaches the end of the race, he's going to have done 62 on them. We've seen him personally struggle to make out to 50 on tires. So to be, being in a battle, being aggressive, trying to pass, I hope he's figured something out. Otherwise, he's definitely going to run out of tires before the end of this race.
Tyre conservation is the key word of the day, but again, outside, trying to cover it off is Travis Henderson. Will he have enough drive? Off of the corner, Wasilewski moving up, and holding things together. Mid part of the race, remember, Wasilewski and Campbell had an absolutely almighty battle out there on the circuit. There have to be a case for Wasilewski to try and keep this race intact, and ultimately he can't get it done. The outside working for Henderson.
Yeah, and I feel there's probably not much love lost between these two either. I believe it was one of the TFR cars. I'm pretty sure it was Henderson that actually got turned across the front of Wasilewski on the backstretch.
And that just goes to show you how much is there out there in terms of this race, how much you have to fight, how much you have to work, and how a race this long, you're going to have an elephant's memory to remember exactly all that's happened in it. And these two back together again and trying to race. And they will have Elvis Bonello trying to go through both of them in the next coming laps. We're down to 19 laps to go. Every lap now becomes a crucial point of matter of fact in this race.
Yeah, Bonello's still trying to recover, but he's now 4 laps down. I don't think he'll want to fight to get past these two cars, knowing that there's realistically nothing out there for him.
That is also very true, of course. Elvis Bonello 4 laps down at this point, so not much that he can do in terms of bringing this one back for him. But at least for those two, their battle certainly continues, as does the battle 2nd and 3rd. Russell still blinking about. Vavrovsky in 3rd position, and they are 3 seconds off for your race leader, Dallas Pataska, at the moment. At what point do the tyres let go? If they let go. If they have been calm with the way that they are supposed to be running out there on track. And I tell you what, Trevor's playing a very, very nice game. He's someone who's always in the mid-pack in this series, but he does have a chance to have an almighty great performance here today at Charlotte.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I think the key thing for both Russell and Vavrovsky here is that they don't want to fight each other too much to cost themselves a chance at the win. They can see Pataska's there, and they've been running him down slowly. It's not come down aggressively quickly, but it does look like Pataska's starting to struggle these last couple of laps.
Dallas Pataska, a 33.1 on that last lap, so that's all right. Russell, a 32.8 on that lap, 2.8 seconds. Now the gap, this is more than enough to close it down. It's got to be a 10th each lap is good enough, or a tenth and a half each lap is good enough. This is in the range for Alexander Russell to make this a sweat for Dallas Pataska at the end, who absolutely needs the tyres to hold.
Yeah, and I think Pataska is already struggling a lot here. He's going to have to really dial the pace back and just try and bring it under control, because he's lost over half a second in the last 2 to 3 laps here. He has to reverse that or hope that everyone else starts to struggle.
The panic is there, and there's not much you can do now as well. Wasilewski's trying the long way around on Travis Henderson to try and find a way through. Couldn't manage it through 1 and 2. So there is always that measure of metric that's there. The 10, the 27, running down the 23 at this point in time. Wasilewski's 86 goes back to the inside line, trying to pick off the move for 6th position overall. And every time there is something going on circuit, everywhere you look, that gap's coming down. It's now 2.8 seconds over the line as they continue to run it down. 14 laps to go.
Yeah, and I'm amazed by just how many cars we still have on the lead lap here still. This has been a very, very long green flag run, and we're still at 11 on the lead lap. Thomas Cope and Jamie Conway, as we see some contact there, the 24, he's not going to go around. He's going to manage to use the wall to straighten it up. Not ideal.
And just trying to turn into the corner, leaning in once, twice, contact up, and is going to have to go in. You can see damage to the front right and is in the pits, and Henderson is not happy at all. So he comes in then, and he'll take a penalty for the unsafe pit entry, and we will stay green here racing around at Charlotte. So that could have been a boon. In fact, the tyres just let go at the worst time. Gion's also come in, couldn't make it home on the tyres. Pataska still holding margin at this point in time. The gap is 2.5 seconds. It's enough at this moment with 12 laps to go. He's holding just enough.
He is, but it is coming down. It's going to be very, very tight for him. And he's progressively slowing the pace more and more. So I don't think he's got any opportunity to extend that gap back out. Really unfortunate for Henderson there. Obviously, some contact, but the unfortunate part was that the right front suspension collapsed when he hit the wall. We've seen a couple of cars get into the wall pretty good so far today, and they've been able to continue without much issue, but unfortunately not the case for Henderson.
Redford has completely lost contact now with Sean Campbell, 1.4 seconds. Gap down by another tenth on that lap, 32.8 compared to a 33 flat, so 2 tenths that lap. 2 tenths now, 11 laps to go. It has to be 2 tenths all the way from here to get this one close, as they will finish lap 390 out there at the moment. Vavrovsky has got the most unenviable position right now with Alexander Russell just in front, but the gap opens a little bit. Pataska finds a 32.7 from the heavens.
Yeah, he has managed to extract some pace, and I hope he's not pushing too hard to, try and get the gap back up, because he might take out the very last bit of the tire life and suddenly drop in the last 5 laps of the race.
And that's always the concern. Have you done enough? Is everything in order? Is everything in line in the final stages? Thomas Cope comes into the pits 1 lap down. He knows his race is pretty much donezo with the way that he's got himself sorted. But Dallas Pataska right now has suddenly upped the cadence, and unless the tyres fall off a cliff, unless a late caution happens inside the next 4 laps, there is going to be no way you'd feel of stopping him, and that might be the case now, where suddenly Trevor Vavrovsky's trying to get aggressive, and he is not happy about the way that Alexander Russell was blinking there through 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's costing him the chance to try and run Pataska down. He's having to kind of pull his punches and making his moves, and that right there cost them both almost a full second.
It says all you need to know about this race. Vavrovsky's tried everything. He'll now go low side, realizes I can't get this for the victory. I'm going to fight for second. He's going to try and push out to the outside, has to lift out of it, not going to get the chance then to go through as he fights against the predictive nature of the 27, or the unpredictive nature, you could call it at this point in time. He is in a real bind at this moment as they go through. Another driver who might be in a bind late might be Mark Redford. Wasilewski is starting to chase him down now, and that could be something to watch late, but the fight for second very much on, and they know between 5 and 2 laps to go, a caution ends the race.
Yeah, Bobrovsky, I think, has got it done this time out. He's not really being given much room at all by Russell. Russell tried to pinch him down, not able to get that to work. See Julian John following Bobrovsky's through.
He is, and absolutely wonderful work then being done. And some brilliant battling then has been found, has been there. And Gian, remember, has fresh tyres, will be able to go around here. We're on lap 395. 396 will signal an all-important point in this race, which will mean we are inside the final 5 laps of this race. International majors ended with a caution on exactly 5 laps to go, and ultimately right now it becomes a case for Trevor Bobrovsky of moving up to second, and is going to move up. Says on radio to Gian, do you want to go through? Answers no. Gian not quite sure what to make of that, has the pace, but was a little bit in 2 minds there.
Yeah, and I think he didn't want to get involved in the potential rundown of Pataska, but ironically, it's kind of the indecision has made it a bit worse. Bobrovsky's lost out in both ends of the track now instead of just one.
Wasilewski to the inside of Redford, this for 5th place, and all of a sudden the wheels have fallen completely off of Redford's wagon. He was one of the final drivers to come in and make that stop, and in fact he does. He gets the wall. He'll go through the grass. Can he save the car as he goes through? Somehow still fighting it as he goes through onto 397. What a save that is.
Yeah, great save, but unfortunately he's got to be really disappointed with this. He was looking like a contender for the race win, and it's just all gone wrong for him this last run. I really don't know what happened. He must have taken way too much out of the tires way too early on, and that ballistic long run pace we were expecting from him just never materialized.
No, absolutely hasn't. He does have time to David H. Baker, but it's 6th position at this point in time for him. The gap's opening up then. Bobrovsky in second, knows he's second. He knows that Gian behind is not for position outright. There'll be a couple popsicle sticks for Dallas Pataska, because we will be, when he crosses the line, 2 laps to go.
Yeah, and I thought that he might have ran the tires off it too early, but it looks like he really was just saving, because his last couple of laps have been really some of the quickest in the field. He's been running 32.6s to 32.8s by Bobrovsky, so he's clearly got some left to spare.
Yeah, he certainly does, and he has driven an absolute masterclass of a race. He was running 32.9s, 33 flats in the middle. Now he's felt like he's got enough of the tyre left, running 32.6s then to finish it off. White flag in the air at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This one will go all the way to 400 and finish under green. We will now find ourselves through 1 and 2 with Dallas Pataska at such a crucial juncture in the European Majors season, where it looked for all the world like Sean Campbell was running away with this one, that there was no way you could stop that freight train. This, the longest race of the season, at over 4 hours just about, and a couple minutes on top of that. Pataska has his season back on track. He wins the World 600.
Yeah, absolutely. The start to the second half of the season that he needed to gain some points back on Sean Campbell. It's obviously a round that plays into his hands a little bit with it being oval focused, but still a really good drive by him, and especially towards the end of the race, really pulled it off.
And on the last lap, Sean Campbell loses the place to Ryan Wasilewski coming through 1 and 2. A vital overtake from the teammate of Dallas Pataska to give more points margin to him at the end. Wow. Absolutely fantastic work then as they got themselves through this race, this incredible race that's been going on. We're going to step aside for one moment. We'll have results for you after this, as well as a couple of conversations.
This is the world's premier online racing simulation. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat from your home computer with the most realistic online motorsports experience you'll find anywhere. Race virtually in the world's biggest events with officially licensed series, cars, and tracks. From the high banks of Daytona to the blistering speeds of Indianapolis, the dirt of Eldora to the world's most legendary road courses. It's all here, and with more than 180,000 people just like you already driving, you'll always have someone to race. Ready to get behind the wheel? Sign up at iRacing.com to get started.
Four hours, 2 minutes, 33 seconds. That is how long it took Dallas Pataska today to pretty much secure what looked like his ability to win. His ability to win today was unparalleled, unrivaled, unmatched as he took the win by 4.7 seconds on an 80-lap green flag run. Sorry, I'll correct myself. 108-lap run to finish this one under green. Treva Vavrovsky will finish off in second with Alexander Russell in third position. Ryan Wasilewski on the last lap, getting the move done on Sean Campbell to give more points to Dallas Pataska as he tries to run down the championship leader. Mark Redford will finish off in sixth position, but crucially, he will only take one position ahead of David H. Baker in the Legends standings. David H. Baker, a runaway at this point in time. He finishes in seventh with David Melnarovic in eighth position. Ross Banfield would be the last finisher on the leading lap in ninth position, with Jamie Conway having to make an extra stop at the end. He rounds out the top 10, and Christian, you have 11 through 18.
Yeah, Julian Jean, the first driver, 2 laps down. Unfortunately, it just went away from him a bit towards those last 2 stints. Thomas Cope struggled a little bit here. Not as good a result for him as he had at Daytona, 3 laps down. Miguel Freitas, unfortunately, that kind of incident coming onto pit road, just really never able to recover. Same for Alvis Bonello with the pit road speeding. Travis Henderson, a very unhappy 15th spot. He was inside the top 10. Unfortunately, right front suspension collapsed very late on in the race after contact. Tom Dreiling in 16th. He kind of had a little bit of a day, got involved in someone else's incident coming onto pit road towards the end of the race. Unfortunately, wasn't able to complete the full distance. Cordell Colon, same thing for him. And then non-starter in Cristano Rocha.
So those were the 18 and the stories that were told along the day, but it would be victory for Dallas Pataska. He found his way to victory lane. He's found his way over towards our commentary position right now. And Dallas, that is a big statement victory today to keep the championship alive, to really find those important points. How big was it today knowing that you were the fastest driver in the qualification, you found yourself at the front for the most laps, and you pretty much had a lock on first position today?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. It's always a good feeling when you get 2 wins in a row as well. But I kind of expect, like, this is where I should be, I believe, for ovals. So it's nice to have the speed, which I've had in a lot of these types of events, these longer oval races, but never really able to get to the old P1 as much as I would like for these events. So it's nice to have back-to-back P1s and have it being one of these longer oval events, where in years past has been problematic. So it's nice to kind of get that out of there and stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit with strategy calls and how that all played out, which ultimately ended up winning me the race with that last stint. So all in all, pretty good race and good overall weekend for Satellite all in all.
A really good weekend overall, but let's talk about how you managed to build up your gaps early on, because it looked like you had a car that was just able to drive into the corner a little bit quicker than everybody else, that you were able to just stick the car with more confidence and with more drive. And in terms of how that works for you and how you were looking to try and build a gap early, how crucial was it in these early stints to give yourself about a second and a half just to run and dictate your own pace?
Oh, extremely important. My goal is to pretty much get a second to 2 seconds and then just ride, manage tires. This is one of the few instances where I can legitimately say it was a feat of tire management. Usually there's a lot of talk of that, but it ends up coming down to what you do with the setup, and that's not the case here. There was some of that for sure, but and then, like, just as a driver, this track, I have a lot of laps here, and someone else in the booth here named Mr. Schallner, have a lot of laps behind him, so he's kind of shown me the ropes a little bit a couple of years ago. So that should be an interesting one for everybody to watch later. But yeah, that's just what it comes down to, is the tire management, and then just trying to stay out front to control the race how I want it to go.
And just looking forward now, of course, you've got 2 wins now in a row. To get the three-peat, you will have to tackle the Mercedes W12E performance at the Red Bull Ring. So in terms of dealing with a completely different skill set, how's your open formula looking?
I won last year on less prep than I would anticipate I would have for this year. So we'll see. There's a lot of talent in the field. We'll see if any we'll call them one racers. I won't say ringers, but we'll see if any of those guys show up. But Sean will be strong, of course. Russell on satellite, we'll see if we can get him to show up again. He's into those cars quite a bit. So I expect another strong performance, but I'm not gonna go in there expecting a win or anything. The key there is to get in there with points and to get out of there without damage.
Well, the floor is yours, Dallas. Anyone you'd like to thank? A big victory here today at Charlotte.
Yeah, I just want to give a big shout out to everybody over at Satellite Racing for the effort we put in this week. I'd like to thank Ryan Washaleski for the awesome paint. It looks great. And ultimately, I'd like to thank you guys for putting on a great show. And hopefully talking to you guys in 3 weeks' time.
Well, 3 weeks' time, a three-peat might just be on the cards. Dallas Pataska there joining us. His 2nd victory in a row. He takes the World 600 here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Christian Schallner stood by with the driver who finished in 2nd position, that being Trevor Vavrovsky.
Well, at the end of the race, we thought that you might have a chance at running down Dallas because you looked like you had a little bit of a tire advantage, and the gap was as low as 3 seconds towards the end of the race. How did you kind of strategize those last 2 runs? Because it looked like it was going to be really difficult for everybody. Everyone looked like they didn't quite get as far into the first run on tires as they would have liked. How did you deal with that? How far back were you planning? And do you think that you had a chance to get Dallas at the end if you weren't battling with Alexander Russell?
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly surprised the run before those last 2, when we got the caution for Mark's spin, surprised to come on as well as I did at the end of the run. I was struggling all day to kind of preserve the right rear. But I think taking 2 tires helped with the balance. So came in on the stop, saw the amount of laps left, kind of targeted around like the 55 lap mark to go to kind of split it in half, take 2 and run to the end. It looked like Dallas was struggling with tires. Clearly that was not the case. Yeah, if I'm being honest, when we came back out, I saw Dallas out front, but saw the amount of laps he had to turn. I was actually really optimistic. I just figured I could sit back, save my stuff, and kind of wait for the tire to go. Because once it got below a certain percentage, there's nothing you could do. The tire's gone, and you're just going to lose all the time. So I was really hopeful. I let Russell go, just trying to manage my stuff, and then figured 10 laps to go, their guys' stuff going away, me with what I had left, and see what would happen. But man, Dallas is just really hard to beat. So it's still good, still 2nd place. Just really wanted to get that first win.
Well, he was certainly pretty close, and you can't be too upset with the 2nd place in such a long race. And we talked about it a little bit on broadcast as to kind of how do you prepare for a race that you know is going to be about 4 hours in length. And, obviously, usually races that long, you're kind of sharing the car with somebody, but in this case, it's an entirely a solo event. So how do you prepare mentally and both physically for a race this long?
Well, it is going to be a high of 99 degrees out today. It's the hottest day in Oregon so far. So the AC unit's working overtime. I got a fan going, and it's just trying to kind of stay cool. No fluids before because it's going to be probably 4 or 5 hours sitting in the cockpit turning laps. But doing all the other endurance racing stuff on iRacing, it can really help you out with this, and the cautions give you a decent break. So the fatigue physically wasn't so much an issue. It's just mentally trying to keep up with turning lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely would agree. I always found with this race that when you sort of see it tick over to 200 or 400, it's always like, oh, we got another half to go. But next time out, it's a completely different deal again. It's the W12 at well, what I know is the A1 ring, but is now obviously Spielberg, Austria. So, any thoughts on that? Obviously, totally different to what you've driven here tonight. Do you think that you can challenge for a win there?
I mean, a win would be fantastic. Probably not going to happen. I think I can call that now. I don't think I'm going to beat Dallas or Sean or anybody like that. But last year's F1 race was pretty encouraging. I really like this new Mercedes. I think a lot of people really like it. So hopefully it's a good race in general. Hopefully try and get maybe in another top 5. But I don't know. It's really we'll really see. Hopefully it's a clean race, and with the different tire compounds and the strategy, maybe we can try and make something happen. But I don't know. See what happens.
Well, to that point, before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah. Shout out Cordell Cologne. He had a rough race today, but put in a lot of work on the setup. Same with Josh Wolf, Brad Walsh in the Sportsman race. They all put in a lot of time into the setup, trying to get it to where it's at. Sponsors, TFR Labs, Majors Garage, and Envision. Just a good effort by the team in general. I was really, really happy with how we were pace-wise. Just had some bad luck.
Well, congratulations on the second place finish, and thank you for coming and chatting with us, and good luck for the next round in Austria.
Thank you. Good luck later today, Chandler.
Thank you.
So as Christian Chandler will have a little bit of luck to play about with the 4 hours there, we are going to jump in, have a conversation with Alexander Russell, finishing off in 3rd position today. Now, Alexander, it looked like, especially early on in terms of the race for you, you really had that ability to save the tyres, work well into the stint late on when everyone's tyres were going down early on. Just what was going through your head through those early stages, letting a couple of those drivers go by you, knowing you had the chance to pick them back up later on in the runs?
So the thought with that was I tested a whole bunch beforehand. I got a car set up that could go the full fuel run on tires. I just have to save a little bit. So I kept doing that, and caution after caution. So it eventually came to where I just thought, we're not going to get a long green flag run. I'm just going to start pushing a bit more, under fueling, getting that little extra 10th out of the setup.
So getting that extra 10th out of the setup, you managed to push yourself up into the front positions, but how difficult was it in the final stages, knowing that you had the likes of Treva behind you, pushing you all the way, and that gap coming down, but just not enough in the final stages to get up there to the very top?
So, I mean, initially it was the strategy call. I knew Dallas was going to take 2 tires. We talked about this before the race. We talked about possible strategy outcomes and how he was going to underfield the entire race and just go shorter, pit a little earlier. And I was going to do the opposite. I was going to run as long as I can. If the race went green, I would go as long as we could, try to cut out a few stops. And never happened. So I knew coming into that last stop, Dallas and me had taken 4 tires. And I knew it was about 60 laps to go, I'd just take 2 tires and try and risk it, because I had a bit more tire wear than I would have liked on the left sides, which to play the 10 car, I thought, Trevor, he managed his tires pretty well. I didn't think he was going to be able to make it on tires, especially when I gained so much in the middle run. And it ended up not being it. I blew the left front tire with 3 to go, I think.
So left front just struggling there at the end, not quite ideal. But how do you look forward towards the next race? Of course, it's 3 weeks from now, Red Bull Ring, Formula One car in the Mercedes. Ultimately, a completely different shift in terms of tone and what you need to deal with in terms of the tools to understand. How are you looking forward to it?
So I quite like the Mercedes, so I think that I should be all right. It's just whether or not I can get the setup in, get my driving personally dialed up, and then it's getting a good qualifying run in, deciding whether I want to start on a certain compound what kind of drivers we have in there. It's going to be an entirely different game because I'm more of an oval-based driver, so this kind of stuff here, but it's going to be a challenge I'm very much looking forward to.
Well, a challenge that we'll hope to see you with in 3 weeks. Before we let you go, the floor is yours, Alexander.
So I would like to thank Lowline Racing, Elliott Sadler Esports for their help on the car. They did a lot to get me ready for this. I know everyone there put in time, effort, answered all the unusual questions. Satellite Racing, Ellis Engineering, Dallas, Pataska, Ryan. Everyone had a great race today. And you guys for broadcasting. It's really cool that we get to do this on air for everyone to watch.
Absolutely, and the best sim racing is always one where everyone gets a chance to see that. Alexander Russell joining us then today, 3rd position overall for his run there. And Christian, just a little look in terms of what was today. Dallas Pataska had the run on the field. He had strategy mapped out. He had everything mapped out in terms of how he wanted to attack the race, start, middle, end, and executed it to absolute perfection today. But what does that mean for someone like Sean Campbell, who today can only manage 5th position and now knows he is on the back foot heading to the Red Bull Ring with the Mercedes W12E performance?
Well, he's on the back foot in terms of the last couple of rounds, but he's not really on the back foot when you look at points-wise. And to be honest, I think today he didn't end up in 5th kind of really through anything of his own doing. And I mean that in a positive sense, because he was fighting with Pataska for the race lead towards the beginning and even through the mid part. It was just kind of how that caution fell that really threw the advantage towards Pataska really and away from Campbell. And you got to think that he did a pretty good job to recover. He was able to pass Redford, who had much better tires. The one moment I think that probably went against him was the last lap where he wasn't able to hold off against Wasilewski. I think he just went a bit too hard too early in that last run, and it cost him. But you know, he's very, very capable of road course racing, and I feel like something like the W12 plays into his hands. So I would totally expect a pretty big battle between himself and Pataska next time out.
And that battle can be found 3 weeks from today, of course. Make sure that you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to the Global Sim Racing channel for more amazing content. Of course, we weren't just racing today for the sake of racing, for the sake of a championship. We were racing for charity as well, and we were racing for Sarge's Place, the North Olympic Regionals Veterans Housing Network, or NORVHN. It's a non-profit serving Clallam and Jefferson counties on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. They offer homeless services to those who have served the United States, whether in peacetime or at war. So for more information, or if you want to go and donate, head to sargesveteransupport.com and get yourself in on there. We're also here with the Majors Garage, of course, as they are the home of free Baseline Plus setups. You can get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. You can sign up for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or you can use the special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off. Link in the description below directly applies to our special offer. Massive thanks have to go, though, to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And of course, additional thanks must go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen below on how to get a hold of more of her great work. From the team today, of course, Justin Prince, who was here with us beforehand, from Christian, from Zach, and from Dougie. You can find more information about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed on screen. You can also check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenvy.com. There is a link in the description below, so do not forget to subscribe if you haven't already. So next up, in terms of races, the upcoming races will be on screen. That'll be what's coming up very, very soon. And in terms of what we are doing next in terms of this action with Global Sim Racing Channel, let's not forget that there is an America's Pro region where a certain Christian Challoner will be driving. If you want to see how well he does, make sure that you jump in and tune in to that very, very soon. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, race clean, race hard, and we will see you on the track.